Okay. Good afternoon, good evening. How you all doing? I caught up on some grading from my out-of-town adventure, and I see Jamie already has the yellow belt, so congratulations. Um, you can be fast forwarded to the finish here. So I was just showing this letter stuffing video that showed two different means of process to show that you can improve the process by eliminating the number of times that you touch something. And we'll go back over to our Six Sigma. This week we covered chapter 7, 8, 9. Chapter 7 is very important because it covers the 5 S's, and that's one of our projects that it's worth like 350 points. So it's important that we start looking at what you want to do this project about. I've got some pretty good proposals. I already approved those that were suggested. We just want you to have fun with that. Okay, so I've got the screen and the camera on different stuff, so you'll be getting the side view as I look at what we're talking about here. But it's talking about where this concept came from, Toyota in the 1980s, and the 5 S's were sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And so these are the English versions of Japanese words that meant these same steps. Here in the sort phase, we're going to put equipment and inventory in their different piles. And if you're doing this at home, you're probably going to figure out what you're going to donate, what you're going to sell, what you're going to keep. But you got to kind of, you can use like Post-it notes for tags or something that lets you know what to do with each of the pieces that you've sorted through. And the 3 classifications are always used, sometimes used, and rarely used. I've got stuff that apparently is never used because it's still in the original box and not open. But we seem to collect a lot of stuff around here, especially if it's a tool or something that one of my grandkids or kids could play with, and we seem to collect that stuff for them. Now we're sorting through product families. It's like put your nuts and bolts together, your games together, your cleaning products together. When I set my garage up with this 5S layout, that's when I discovered that we had something like 40 gallons of house paint. The people that had the house before us apparently didn't throw any paint away. And my wife loves to change colors of stuff. So we had new paint to buy. And as we went along, we've opened up cans and found out that there's solid rock material in there. So it really wasn't worth saving. But doing that sorting by the like items, we were able to find out what we had too much of, and then find out, if it was trash or treasure. And then setting it into order. This is like coming up with a better storage system, like for shelving, cabinets, containers of some kind, boxes, or even if it's putting them in bags with the label on it to tell what's in it. It focuses attention on a specific location where they're going to be stored, so other people besides you know where things are. On my toolbox, I've got each shelf labeled as to if there's screwdrivers or hammers or pliers or ratchets. So it makes it a little easier if I tell my daughter, hey, can you go get me pliers out of the second drawer? It's labeled pliers. Go over to the right, the bigger pliers are there. It makes it easier to have help putting them back where they're supposed to go too when you're finished. And then we got a shine. Of course, that's cleaning everything up, getting the rust or the dirt or the grime or dust to make it look like it's cared for. And they've done different studies that show that people tend to work a lot more efficiently in a clean environment. And so at the desk that you're at right now or the table, if you look around, you see a lot of distractions and stuff. It really does take away from your focus. So if you want to kind of help with your studying and improving your retention on new materials and stuff, you might want to have a nice, clean surface area to work from without a lot of distractions in it. And then we got standardized. And here, it's, you want to document what's been done, what's in place. So it could be a checklist. It could be like, I'm going to come back in a week, a schedule, and make sure that you clean it again. Or once a month, you're going to go through and sort out the junk and the stuff that needs to be donated or what have you. But it's actually trying to make sure that this cleanliness and this organization are maintained. And then you got sustain. So once you got all of that cleaned up, you got some kind of a checklist. It's the follow through, the follow up, so that it's going to, the standard or an improved standard of how you've got this set up is going to endure the test of time. And you really do have to make a conscientious effort. I see my stuff slide. My office here was one of my first projects, and it was very well organized and all neat. All my books were from the largest to the smallest, alphabetical, whatever. Looked like a library. And as time goes on and you're moving things around and using it, it does tend to get a little disorganized. So it's having that follow through to come back and revisit your project area and just set everything straight again. If it's a work site, it's usually like an end of shift thing or an end of week or end of month, where you actually go through and you go through all the steps to make sure it's still where it's supposed to be. So that was chapter 5. And this, of course, has the template that's a good start as to where you want your 5S project to go and what it's going to look like. But this one basically has like a checklist that asks you if it is a low, medium, or high rating as far as the answers to these questions. And I guess what we're looking for is a high score, being something that if you're going to do this project, that would be beneficial to you. So it says items in the workplace are stored in the right order. If that is a high priority, then that's would get a check mark there. Then you're going to count all the ones for, it'll roll them up into here to how many of them are high, low, or medium. All the high ones are the ones that you want to try to incorporate into your 5S project. So I think this one has like what the ratings are and how to classify them under the directions, but the template adds the actual, where you ask yourself a question on each one of these, like on Shine 3, a person is assigned to oversee a clean and organized workspace. And all these basically are talking about a work area or you're like at your job, but they reflect the same information you need if you had a personal location, you know, in your home or something. Okay, so that's your template. That comes in with what you are going to suggest to do as far as what your 5S project is. So what you want to do, and that template gets you your first 30 points on that assignment. Chapter 8 is interesting. I think the majority of you have done this. So I won't have you do it again. I just wanted to kind of revisit the hot spots in it. They're basically talking about working with their MRI equipment, and that they have children that are their patients, and sometimes the kids aren't very cooperative, and they have to, in some cases, even sedate them. And so having this schedule where you can get your child patient through the process, it's not a 15-minute, 30-minute process if there's not a doctor on call that can come down and give you the student or the child the sedative, and then you got to wait until the drug takes effect. So it kind of got sloppy where they were losing valuable time that they could be using the machine. Did I just skip everything? So I'm trying to get rid of the voiceover. I just wanted to go to the end here where they figured out. They looked at the side of it, what the supplies were involved in, inputs, process outputs, and the customers. And that allowed them to look at what if you want to call this the task chart, the process chart, to see where there was opportunity to improve. They discovered that when they got to the MRI, that the preparation wasn't done right. So they looped that back. So sampling the recent record, Six Sigma found a 4 or 5 day average weight over a 10-week average weight for MRI requiring sedation. So 4 or 5 days if they didn't require it, 10 weeks if they did. They had to have a physician on site if that patient had to be sedated. So they reworked it where they could get shorter amounts of time between when they set the appointment and when they actually go through the MRI on both ways. And they scheduled more time and had the schedule for each exam, perhaps a counterintuitive conclusion. They established standard times for these exams, one each reflecting the type of MRI ordered. So they could tell if there was going to be a child that was getting an MRI that they probably should maybe have the sedation available. And so they scheduled those on days that they would have a doctor available just in case. And so it improved greatly the use of the machine and shortened the time frame for the patients to get results back on their MRI. In addition, it generated 1.2 million additional dollars in revenue just based on the schedule. And so that was a case study on how to improve the process by finding where the problem is in the process. Okay, chapter 9 is processing mean and variability. So variation is what we try to get to a minimum. That's things that are different from one instance to the next. And the mean is right in the middle. And so ideally, you got this average right in the middle is where we're hitting all the time. That if it takes 15 minutes for an MRI for a child to occur, then that's somewhere where it stays. It could be 20 minutes for some, it could be 10 for others. It could be 30 minutes for some, it could be 5 for others, but the average right there is like 15 minutes. That's the ideal. And so it talks about 2 parameters. They got an upper and lower parameter that we look at. Let's see if it's going to show us this. It's talking a little bit about diameters of gas caps. This is about inputs and outputs for patient processing. Patient satisfaction, physicians also have to engage in a variation reduction. So what about waiting to talk to a sales representative at an Apple store? Sometimes there's little or no wait, other times it's a 10-minute or longer. For some reason, I was down there at Virginia Beach and we walked by in a mall, an Apple store, and there were people still in the hallway. I don't know what that was on sale or what was the draw to have people come to the Apple store. Most of the stuff they do now, they can take care of you online. This talks about auto manufacturing. Every effort's made to ensure the parts are almost all the same. They fit together. Tires got to fit the rims, doors got to fit around the body, gas caps got to fit on the gas line. So all of these are within a standard. And then there's like a variation, and we'll discuss that more in depth, as a standard deviation or a difference in being in the middle that can or can't still make the process work. So if I had a jar with a lid, and that lid was just a little bit bigger, it fit. If it was just a little bit smaller, it wouldn't fit. So we have to find this variation as to where something is still usable. It doesn't impose any type of safety issues. and it's acceptable as a usable. It's not a defect. So I think they have an example here is what I'm looking for. This was talking about more car parts again. So I'm not sure if you understand the concept of variation. If you took a hike across the stream, one problem, however, is that you can only swim. You can't swim, and you're loaded down with a 40-pound backpack. Concerned about the stream, your companion attempts to comfort you. Don't worry, the average depth of the stream is only 2 feet. So average, right? You're thinking 2 feet, that's up to my knees, but that's the average. So it says, okay, the average is 2 feet, but what about the variation? You now worry that the edges might be 2 inches, but the center might be 7 feet. The average by itself is not all it's cut out to be. When working with operational processes or when crossing the stream, you need more information than just the average. You need to understand the extent of the variation. In other words, how far away from the average or the middle are we looking at here? Is it just a small deviation or variation, or is it a large? And it talks here about it's possible to design a process where there's very little or no variation from one part to the next. Should we be able to create these perfect fitting parts? That is a answer to a question that is got dollar signs by it. So if we want it to fit perfectly, then we're going to have specialized equipment. We're going to have specially trained people, and we're going to have to reject anything that doesn't fit perfectly like it's supposed to. And so if it doesn't have to fit perfectly, then there can be this little bit of wiggle room or variation. And so this talks about we're designing an aircraft and it costs 72 million. But we look at a Toyota, they're not 17,000 right now, they're probably about 37,000. So we need to accept the process for both the manufactured and services that are being expected. So if I was making a hula hoop, I wouldn't really be too concerned if the stripes didn't line up or there was a staple that was sticking up a little bit where they put it together. But if I was designing components of an artificial heart, then I would want every one of those pieces to work in case it ended up in your grandma or your mom or you. You don't want something that's got variation. You want it to be something that's perfect. And so we'll spend the extra time, effort, and money to make sure something that's life-threatening or is given the extra time and the expertise to make that perfect. So when you get into aviation, you know, if there's a part broken, you're 10,000 feet above the ground, you're not landing that without somebody getting injured. If you're in a nuclear power plant, every seal, every washer, nut, and bolt has to be to a specific hardness, tightened to a specific foot-pound. It has to be right, or else people could get hurt. So it really depends on the process, how important, how expensive, how dangerous it is as to raising the standard as to how high we have to put the emphasis on reducing the variation. For the most part, there can be some variation. And we'll learn about that in upcoming chapters where they have an upper and a lower limit. As to anything in between there, the upper and lower, you're fine. You can use that part, you can use that process. So we'll dig a little deeper in that in our next visit. So coming up, we got chapter 10, multivariable analysis and XY matrix. It's going to show you how to use some of the charts and that so you can show people what's going on in a process using a visual aid to capture that information. And we got control charts to show you the different types of them. And then we got measuring variation, and that's where we're going to get into the upper and lower limits that you can have. So that's our 3 chapters that we're looking at next week. We're currently in week 3. We come up to midterm next week. I have to have grades in, I think, the 5th of July, the Tuesday after the week If you go out and look at our grades, they are update as of today. After our meeting today, I'll update the information that we talked about today. And I usually try to publish a message for the week, telling about where everybody's at in the class and what we got coming up. So again, I'm sorry about last week not being able to meet with you live and answer your questions. When I answered my emails and stuff today, I think there was 28 student inquiries that I took care of. So we're back on track. I don't have any more time away for the summer. I really did enjoy myself, got some rest, got to see some things with my family. It was where my wife and I got married. We went back to Virginia Beach. She's got relatives there. So my daughter got to spend time with them. She actually got into a flight suit and was in a air tunnel, and her cousin is an expert instructor at it. So she got flipped around and put through all kinds of struggles. It's like the closest you could get to simulate free fall from parachute jump or from flying. So she really enjoyed that. And I'm glad he was there to give us a free because they're like $100 a minute to take those flights. So she spent some time in there and really did enjoy it. I know that we've got, we had a holiday yesterday, so all the due stuff is tonight at midnight for anything that was for this week. And we've got one more week to prepare for midterms. But I would suggest to you that you work ahead when you can. As I said, James already got the yellow belt. That's great news. Nobody fails my class when they earn their yellow belt. And I'm pretty lenient about what they do for their 5S and for their VSM projects, because I'm just getting you those so you understand more about the process of 5S or a variable value stream map, so you can do better to get your yellow belt. Well, if you've already got your yellow belt, you already showed us that you know what that's about. So we'll close out our stuff out at our site, and we can take a look. I started off with this recording about mass and single production. Just started up about 3 minutes before class. You can fast forward 5 minutes. Of course, you already know you were here and get past it. But in class, we actually do these exercises when we meet in person. And one of them that we do to show about variation and the different types of production is make paper airplanes. And then we test fly those to see if they will reach like 3 tables away from the back of the classroom. And it's pretty interesting finding out what our defect ratio is. Like if it's 2 out of 4 make it all the way to the front. If one airplane builder does it better than another, maybe somebody in the class can really get sharp edges and really has a strong throw with their wrist to get that thing to fly where it's supposed to. They may have a smaller variation in how they build their planes than maybe other classmates. So it's interesting when you get involved in doing these live. It takes a little something out of it virtually, but I wanted to share that video with you so you could see what we try to do in class. Okay, what have we got going on in the module? Let's take a look. Week 3, you have those 3 chapters we just discussed, and you have your S5 proposal. As like I say, I think half of you've already turned those in. You'll get credit for attending today. Next week, we've got those 3 chapters, multivariance, control charts, and measuring variation. And you won't have any other work besides that due. We got our 4th of July break. So on the 2nd day of the week, the 5th, which is Tuesday, we will have, I'm sorry. Yeah, we still meet on Tuesday. We'll be at the halfway point. And sometimes this is where folks start working way ahead because they want to get other classes finished up, and they've got this one down pat, the rhythm of the quizzes and the work. And I see a lot more people about week 4, week 5 start finishing up. So we already got one across the line. That's 20% of the class. Let's see if we can get everybody else. And I see that I had 3 of you join me today. I do appreciate that. It makes it a little bit easier to know I'm talking to people instead of just making some recording, talking to myself. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to stop the recording. I'll be available to answer any questions you might have. So let me see if I can get it to that particular. If I can get that screen to come up to offer me that. Let's see. Okay. I'm still not seeing stop record. There we go. I need to write that shortcut there.